Have you ever noticed something strange? Some people hit 60, 70, even 80, and somehow they still have that spark. You know exactly who I'm talking about. The person who walks into a room and suddenly everybody feels lighter. The person laughing at their own jokes before anyone else does. The person who somehow has more energy than people half their age. And then there are other people. They turn 40 and start acting like their warranty expired. They sit down and make noises getting up. They sit down and make noises sitting down. They sneeze and need 3 business days to recover. If that's you, don't worry. We're all friends here. But seriously, what makes some people seem young no matter how many birthdays they've collected? According to Carl Jung, the answer has very little to do with wrinkles, very little to do with grey hair, and absolutely nothing to do with owning 17 different anti-aging creams that all promise to make you look 25 by next Tuesday. Jung believed something fascinating. He believed many people grow old because they stop growing. Think about that for a second. Not because the years pass, because curiosity disappears, because wonder disappears, because life becomes predictable. And that's where today's secret comes in, the one daily exercise. Not a gym exercise, not a treadmill, not 1,000 push-ups. Because honestly, if somebody told me I needed 1,000 push-ups to stay young, I'd just age immediately. No, this exercise happens inside your mind, and once you understand it, you'll never look at aging the same way again. So if you're watching right now, type "still young" in the comments. Even if you're 25, even if you're 85, even if your knees make popcorn sounds every morning, type it anyway. Let's have some fun. Now here's the exercise. Every single day, become curious about something. That's it. Sounds too simple, right? You're probably thinking, that's the secret? Yes. And the funny thing is, children do this naturally. A child can spend 20 minutes staring at an ant. An adult sees the same ant and says, "Why is there another problem in my house?" Children explore. Adults categorize. Children wonder. Adults assume. Children ask questions. Adults think they already know the answers. And that's exactly where aging often begins. Not in the body, in the mind. Have you ever met someone who complains about everything? The weather, the food, the music, the neighbors, the television, the internet, the dog next door, the dog across the street, the dog that only exists in their imagination. Everything bothers them. Meanwhile, another person the same age is excited about learning how to use a new phone, trying a new recipe, reading a new book, talking to new people. Guess which person usually seems younger? Exactly, the curious one. Because curiosity keeps the mind moving, and a moving mind stays alive. Think about your favorite people. I bet many of them have one thing in common. They're interested. Interested in life. Interested in people. Interested in stories. Interested in ideas. They're not finished. They're still exploring. That's what makes them magnetic. And Carl Jung saw this over and over again. He noticed that people who continued discovering themselves continued feeling alive. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Most people think curiosity means learning about the world, but Jung said something even deeper. Become curious about yourself. Now that sounds dangerous, because some of us avoid ourselves like we're avoiding a phone call from an unknown number. But seriously, how often do you ask yourself questions? Why do certain things annoy me? Why do certain people inspire me? Why do I keep repeating the same habits? Why do I react the way I do? Most people never ask. They just keep running on autopilot. And then years pass. Lots of years. But when you become curious about yourself, something amazing happens. You start growing again. And growth feels young. Think back to a time when you learned something surprising about yourself. Maybe you discovered a hidden talent. Maybe you realized you were stronger than you thought. Maybe you finally understood why something bothered you for years. Didn't that feel exciting? Of course it did, because discovery creates energy, and energy creates youthfulness. Now I want you to imagine something. Imagine two gardens. One garden is cared for every day. New flowers appear, new colors appear, new life appears. The second garden is ignored. Nothing changes, nothing grows. Everything slowly fades. Which garden would you rather walk through? Your mind works exactly the same way. Curiosity plants new seeds every single day. And here's the funny part. It doesn't have to be anything huge. People hear self-development and immediately think they need to climb a mountain. No. Sometimes curiosity is tiny. Maybe you take a different route during a walk. Maybe you listen to a song you've never heard. Maybe you ask someone about their life story. Maybe you learn one interesting fact. Maybe you try cooking something new. Maybe you discover why cats act like they own the planet. Which, honestly, they do. Cats walk into your house, judge your furniture, ignore your affection, eat your food, and somehow you're grateful they're there. That's confidence. We could all learn something from cats. But here's the point. Small moments of curiosity wake up the brain. They remind you that life is bigger than your routine, and that's where youthfulness lives. Not in pretending to be young, not in denying your age, not in trying to compete with people 30 years younger. No, real youthfulness comes from remaining open. Open to learning, open to change, open to surprise. And if you stay with me, because this is where things get really good, I'm going to show you the hidden reason most people lose this exercise and how you can bring it back starting today. Because the biggest obstacle isn't age. It's something much sneakier. And almost everyone falls into the trap without realizing it. So what is this sneaky trap? Comfort. Not the good kind. I'm talking about the kind of comfort that quietly turns into a cage. You know how it happens. You find your favorite chair. Then somehow that chair becomes your permanent address. You have a favorite TV show. Then suddenly you're watching the same episodes for the 47th time. You order the same food, take the same route, talk about the same problems, think the same thoughts. And before you know it, life starts feeling smaller. Not because life got smaller, because your world stopped expanding. Now don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with routines. I love routines. Routines are great. But when routine becomes your entire life, curiosity packs its bags and moves out. And when curiosity leaves, life starts feeling old. Not old in years, old in energy, old in excitement, old in possibility. That's why some people seem ancient at 35, and others seem youthful at 85. One group stopped exploring, the other never did. I once heard someone say, "The day you think you've seen it all is the day life stops surprising you." And honestly, life is full of surprises. Some good, some weird, some so strange you couldn't make them up, like accidentally sending a text to the wrong person, or waving back at someone who wasn't waving at you. We've all done it. You're standing there smiling like a celebrity. Then you realize they're greeting somebody behind you. Suddenly you're inspecting your own hand like, well, this thing exists. Life is funny, but you only notice those moments when you're paying attention. Curiosity helps you pay attention, and attention makes life richer. Now here's another thing Jung understood. Many people become afraid of change as they get older. But here's the funny part. Change happens anyway. Whether we like it or not, the world changes, technology changes, people change, even the meaning of words changes. Half the time I hear young people talking, I feel like I need subtitles. But the people who stay young don't fight every change. They become students again. They stay teachable. That's a powerful word. Teachable. Imagine being 70 and still saying, I can learn something. Imagine being 80 and still saying, tell me more. Imagine being 90 and still being curious about the world. That is beautiful. That is rare. And that is exactly what keeps the spirit alive. Because the moment you think you know everything, you stop growing. And the truth is, nobody knows everything. If someone tells you they know everything, ask them why socks disappear in the washing machine. Nobody has solved that mystery. Scientists are trying. Probably. Now let's make this practical. How do you actually do this daily exercise? Simple. Every morning ask yourself one question. What can I be curious about today? That's it. One question. Maybe it's a person. Maybe it's a place. Maybe it's an idea. Maybe it's yourself. Then spend a few minutes exploring it. Not hours. Not all day. Just enough to wake up your mind. You'd be amazed how much energy comes from that tiny habit, because every day becomes an adventure instead of a repetition, and adventures don't have age limits. Think about children again. Why are they so energetic? Because every day is discovery. Everything is new. Everything is interesting. Everything is worth investigating. A cardboard box becomes a castle. A stick becomes a sword. A puddle becomes a scientific experiment. Adults walk past the same things without noticing, but when curiosity returns, the world starts looking bigger again, and that feeling is priceless. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever met someone who was technically old, but somehow felt younger than everyone around them? Maybe it was a grandparent, maybe a neighbor, maybe a friend, maybe someone famous. They had laughter, they had stories, they had sparkle. People loved being around them. Why? Because they were still alive inside, still curious, still growing, still interested, still engaged. And that's the real secret. Youth isn't an age. It's a relationship with life. Read that again. Youth isn't an age. It's a relationship with life. You can be young at 80. You can be old at 30. The difference often comes down to curiosity, to wonder, to openness, to growth. Carl Jung understood that the human soul needs movement. Not physical movement alone, inner movement, the movement of discovery, the movement of learning, the movement of becoming. And every day you practice curiosity, you tell life something powerful. You tell life, I'm not finished yet. There is something beautiful about that. You don't need to have everything figured out. You don't need perfect health. You don't need endless energy. You don't need to look 25. You just need to stay interested. Interested in people, interested in ideas, interested in your own growth, interested in the next chapter. Because the moment you stay interested, life stays interesting. And interesting people never truly grow old. Before we finish, I want to leave you with a challenge. Tomorrow morning, before you do anything else, ask yourself, what can I be curious about today? Then follow that curiosity. See where it takes you. Talk to someone new. Learn one thing. Ask one question. Try one small experience. You don't need a huge transformation. You just need one tiny spark. Because sparks become fires. Questions become discoveries. Discoveries become growth. And growth keeps the spirit young. If you enjoyed this video, tell me in the comments, what is one thing you're curious about right now? Seriously, I want to know. Maybe it's history, maybe it's psychology, maybe it's gardening, maybe it's why your dog stares at you while you're eating. That's a valid mystery. Let's fill the comments with curiosity. And if you made it all the way to the end, type, I'm still curious. Because that simple sentence might be the most youthful thing a person can say. Thank you for spending this time with me. Keep learning, keep laughing, keep exploring, keep surprising yourself, and most importantly, never lose your curiosity. Because the people who stay curious never stop feeling alive.